Okay, boys and girls, we are live, and it's never a good idea. No one should listen. But let me get you straightened out there, John. Give you some wide stuff. What do you think of that?
Oh, pretty cool.
Yeah, fucking magic.
Even though we're all just
shit.
We're all just avatars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I think I can
actually. Boxes really don't matter as much if nobody's on camera.
I'm on camera.
Oh, okay.
I'm here, kind of. Anyway, so Nephilim Free had this stream the other day. We don't understand evolution. Can you teach us? And in there, he plays a little clip about. You remember when he went on the Dr. Dan show and he rage quit?
Yeah.
Like after about 20 minutes. Well, I kind of want to dig into this a little bit before, and I kind of want to explain what's really stupid about this. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share this. These guys, I'm tired. I'm getting really tired of pulling my punches on calling them ignorant or stupid instead of ignorant.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just gotten to the point where either they are lying. They're lying to us on purpose, or they really are this goddamn ignorant that they can't understand basic fucking genetics and biology. And this little point may be something that not everybody can understand, but none of the guys that don't understand it, other than these people, are claiming that they do understand it, right? I mean, that's the difference. Like if you're going to act, if you're going to come out there and you're going to posture like, oh, evolution has been debunked and, all of this stuff and junk DNA is over and the Encode project did this and that, and you're making all these fucking claims, then you should really know what the hell you're talking about, or you should keep your fucking mouth shut.
Right. You should at least put it in peer review, right?
Or you should
something of that.
Well, you should put in a little pinch of fucking humble.
Well, what the thing is that ignorance isn't always necessarily a bad thing, because everybody's ignorant of something. Okay, I mean, because ignorance is just lack of knowledge. But then when you have someone that's ignorant and then they are repeatedly told what the actual answer is, they're repeatedly pointed towards resources that they could educate themselves with, and then they still stay with the same ignorance, then that is fair game to call them stupid, because you're not doing anything wrong by being, you're not being any less kind now, because they had their opportunity to rectify their ignorance and they refused to do that.
Right. So ignorance plus arrogance or willful ignorance equals stupidity.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I think there's isn't there a quote from Einstein, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're basically an idiot?
Yep, something like that.
Also, the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I want to get through my clip here. So let's see if you can indulge. It's only about 5 minutes. So okay. Hi, Leo.
Hey, Leo.
Oh, Leo's got big flat Earth debate tonight.
Oh,
That's going to be. It's going to be really hard.
No,
flat Earth.
No, I'm not debating on the flat Earth. I'm debating whether the Earth is at the center of the solar system / universe.
So isn't that roughly the same kind of bullshit? It's just.
I mean, it's a statement that's demonstrably wrong. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that should take you about 5 minutes.
I mean, I posted on Twitter earlier today when I saw the MDD notification. I can't even remember what the dude's name is now. Robert something.
Robert Singenis.
Singenis, yeah. I quote tweeted MDD's tweet and said, "Is Robert Singenis have brain damage?"
Yeah.
I just hope he doesn't get mad when I call him Robert instead of Dr. Singenis.
Why is he not really a doctor?
Well, I don't know. The place that he received his PhD from is unaccredited. I can't say that it's a diploma mill, but it's unaccredited.
Yeah. He's probably not a doctor. Yeah. I was listening to the Daily Show. I think it's Klepper or somebody like that. He goes out and interviews Trump supporters and tries to figure
Jordan
them out.
Klepper?
Yeah. Holy shit.
The one that I loved is he went to a Trump rally just recently, like probably a month and a half, 2 months ago. Something. It was like just before the election. It was like, so would you? He was like, so would you consider yourself pro-life? Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you would do anything to protect life? Yes. Why aren't you wearing a mask? And the guy didn't even realize. The question was just like, oh, I think it's a matter of personal choice. And then Jordan Klepper just looks at the camera and looks back at the guy.
Well, today at the end of the clip, or the one I watched from a month ago, at the end of the clip, they were all at a Trump rally, and he was asking this guy over and over again if he had read the transcript to the the impeachment hearings or whatever, and he said no, I haven't read them, but he said it's really important to read the transcript, right? And he said, oh yeah, everybody should read the transcript and think for themselves and not be sheep, And he said, okay, but you read it, and he said, oh no, I haven't read it yet. And but you think it's important not to be a sheep, right? and then he flashes out and he shows all these Trump supporters going through these gates into a big pen with two marshals on horses who looked like sheep herders, and all these Trump supporters are going through these gates into a pen. It was just fucking hilarious. I was on the floor laughing. It was funny as shit. Anyway. This is the same kind of thing. So I'm going to play a clip now. Now.
Anyway, let's check this little piece of video out and see in a moment for Dr. Dan. And then I'll open this room up.
Okay. Keep him. No, he said an embarrassing moment for Dr. Dan.
What was this on Dan's channel?
Yeah. This is when
you should, do you have a link to that on hand, or do I have to search it?
I will throw it in the chat, and I will put it in the description when I can.
And by the way, that's not a link for Nephi's video here, but a link to the video of him on Dr. Dan's channel.
Oh, okay, shit. I'll find it. I haven't found it yet. Okay.
Do you know what the name of that video is?
Neph Rage Quits on Dr. Dan's channel. I'll find it for you. Well, go ahead and look it up for me, Leo, and throw it in chat for us, because I'll be playing this. Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it.
It's not far back.
Dr. Dan's channel, and it's a recent one.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. It's a couple of weeks. Damn it. Fucking cat hair or something. Or COVID. I don't know.
Well, firstly, everything you just described is in the imagination of men. They're not talking about what was observed. They're talking about what they believe could have happened and should have happened and likely happened in the primordial past. That's not observable, testable, repeatable science. Secondly, it should have gone without saying, since we're talking about genetic algorithms. Let me just lay something on the table for you to consider about what a genetic algorithm does. Genetic algorithms.
I know. I've written
genetic algorithms depend. Their function depends upon interdependency.
I'm not finding this video on his
information that are hundreds, thousands, or millions of base pairs away from each other.
Okay.
Their function depends upon interdependency between bits of information that are hundreds, thousands, or millions of base pairs away from each other on the DNA.
Do you think that's a large distance? Because it's fucking not.
Your idea about chemical determinacy. Let's compare that.
Can you pause really quick? I have a really good analogy I can draw.
I heard about half of that.
Okay. It's really important to listen to this. And then we could get into it a little bit. Is that okay, Leo?
Sure, but I mean, I'd rather correct his bullshit now.
Well, let's listen to the whole bullshit we're talking about.
And is this him talking on his channel, or is this him playing the video of him talking on Dr. Dan's channel? Wait, no, I think this was him with Dr. Dan, because like I heard Dan chime in there.
Yeah, that's actually him. He's playing the video from Dr. Dan's channel. So
they're only when they're in a genetic algorithms depend. Their function depends upon interdependency between bits of information that are hundreds, thousands, or millions of base pairs away from each other on the DNA molecule. Now, your idea about chemical determinacy, let's compare that. Okay, chemicals act or interact with each other only when they're in immediate proximity to each other.
False.
Not when they're hundreds, millions, or thousands or millions of base pairs away from each other on a gigantic long molecule that, if we were to, if it were the size of a rope, would be hundreds of miles long. Okay, so wait, it is true because wait. Genetic algorithms are based upon interdependencies between bits of information that are of vast distances from each other on the DNA molecule.
Sometimes
Chemical determinacy could only take place when molecules are in immediate proximity to each other.
Nope.
So we have decision making and we're prescribing activities in molecules way over here about molecules, the aboutness problem of mind, about molecules that are way down there. They're not in proximity to each other.
This is why, because now there's like
your chemical determinacy.
Let me not comport with what goes on in nuclei.
Your chemical determinacy.
Yeah, I do need to jump in for a second because one rule that I've set for my
and that's where your rage quit.
That's where your rage quit.
Right, this is why he never goes on anybody else's channel, because he can't sit there and fucking monologue for 10 minutes repeating the same thing over and over or gish galloping 13 different points. He already made about 6 or 7 there, which is why I wanted us to pause earlier, because I know Nephilim very well. It might sound like in a 2 or 3 minute clip that he's talking about the same thing, but he's not. He never is. It's 5, 6, 7, 8 different points that aren't even fucking related to each other. Number one, I think it's worth mentioning that a good analogy for this, a good analogy for this is, so when he's talking about this base pair distance, if we were to take a proton of just a simple hydrogen atom, the electron that's orbiting it would be orbiting at a distance. If we made that proton the size of a basketball, would be orbiting at a radius of about 7 miles. So when you have an atom as large as a silicon atom or a carbon atom or an iron atom, that valence electron, that last electron, is miles upon, obviously speak in terms of scale here, is miles upon miles upon miles upon miles away from the nucleus. But it's still interacting with it.
Yeah, but I don't even understand. He used the phrase giant molecule. What the fuck is a giant molecule?
Well, DNA is
pretty big.
Macro.
But still, I mean, does giant really fit for when you're talking about that scale?
Yeah, if you were to unwind it, it would be like a yard long, but it's all bunched up in like a few micrometers.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
It's pretty small.
But okay, anything in the cell can affect anything else inside the cell. It doesn't matter how far apart they are. Like what he's probably referring to. I know, for instance, there's an enhancer for Sonic Hedgehog that's like 2 million base pairs downstream of the actual gene, right? Any regulation that occurs with that enhancer can easily affect it because they're in the same nucleus. A protein complex that sits on that enhancer will also be present. Like that protein will still be present elsewhere inside of that inside of the nucleus.
I got another real quick question about something he said right at the beginning. He was talking as if determinations that were made about things that happened long ago in deep time weren't observable, testable, and repeatable. I don't necessarily see how that could be true. I mean, because whatever methodology they're using, they're certainly not finding one example of it and then making a determination.
Right. If you get out of bed this morning, do you not trust gravity because you can observe what it was doing yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea behind inference, right? Science is all about making inferences.
Right. Okay, so basically what he's talking, and he was talking about chemical determinacy, and John Maddox made the same stupid ass fucking mistake.
Hold on really quick. What do they mean? What is their definition of chemical indeterminacy? Just so I know what the fuck they mean when they say it.
What it is. We have what I have here, 4 chromosomes on the screen, right? And so if you have a transregulator, which is basically an RNA that gets copied from over here, why in the fuck is this doing this to me? Okay, if you got an RNA that gets copied from over here and it goes out and it actually affects the expression of a gene right here. That's what he's talking about. Hundreds of thousands, or it could be cis, which means it's on the same DNA.
Right.
And basically something gets transcribed right here, and or if perhaps we have the situation where you have a DNA that folds back on itself, that sort of thing.
That's what happens with Sonic Hedgehog.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah. Or you could have 2 chromosomes and one of them basically aligns with another one and so affects that. So anyway, he's talking about what normally happens in biology. I mean, almost like sometimes these regulators come from outside the nucleus, and sometimes they come from outside the cell. And sometimes if you're 100 miles away from a forest fire, you can smell the fucking smoke. And it doesn't mean that there's chemical indeterminacy. It means that signals basically are molecules were transferred across. But at the end of the day, if a gene expresses or not, there has to be a chemical reaction right here. God damn it! I gotta lock this thing or something. I don't know what that. Oh, that was sharp. Okay, there has to be a chemical reaction right here in order to get that gene to not express. There's never psychic ESP energy coming from one genome to the other.
Quick question. So, is this kind of like the argument that Mad Max makes about the ribosome, how the mRNA and the tRNA aren't actually physically interacting?
Exactly.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's just so stupid. It's like saying that the moon and the Earth aren't physically interacting, which actually that's a really bad analogy because technically the moon and the Earth aren't physically interacting. They're just following straight lines that are actually.
If you want to call gravity.
But anyway. Well, no, it's just that the moon doesn't actually do anything to the Earth, and the Earth doesn't actually do anything to the gravity. Was a bad example to use. Okay. Electromagnetism would be better. It's like saying that an electron and a proton aren't interacting because they're not physically touching. That's not how interactions work. Even in chemistry, that's not how they work.
But the really stupid thing about it is how he's going on and he's shaming Dr. Dan. He's embarrassing him so much, and he embarrasses himself so badly. And so anytime they come up with this meme that there are effects that come from hundreds of thousands of nucleotides away, you guys got to jump on them and say, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah, like I said, it's irrelevant. As long as you have expression somewhere in that nucleus, it's expression. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter which affecting mRNA, where that affecting mRNA exists in your DNA. It can still affect it. It's still being expressed. It's in your genome.
Here's all you need to know about biochemistry. You got this big bag of crap. and shit's bumping into each other, and fucking, it's a big bag of crap, and it depends, on how much of that, on how much of one kind of crap you have, how many molecules, whether or not it's going to have an effect. Sometimes, and that also goes to the Encode project. Okay,
guys, this is for my benefit. This analogy, but go ahead.
Okay, good. The Encode project found they actually went out because they can multiply these they can multiply these transcripts. When they get a little tiny section of RNA off of a genome, they went ahead and they just kept fucking creating. They created these little signal things that lined up with these, and they multiplied particular ones, and they found expression. About 80% of the genome express themselves. And the reason, you know why Encode did that? They didn't do that to...
Oh, shit, I'm sorry. Somebody keeps texting me. My apologies.
Okay.
Dude, why does your phone ringtone sound like a fire alarm?
Because I'm fucking 57 years old, goddammit. And if you heard my ringtone from my phone... It would probably remind the only person in this room who would probably remind you of this would be Speed, but you'd be thinking about the Rockford Files.
Cool.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just
what's a Rockford file? These kids today. Anyway, so the Encode project, found that, all of these, that it's very easy for a transcript to happen in the nucleus. In other words, part of that gene gets transcribed in some tissue type or another, and a whole bunch do. But the reason Encode did that is not to disprove the junk DNA or to prove functionality of the entire genome. Encode did that because each of these little mRNAs that get produced, some of them have an effect on disease. and they wanted to come up with a massive encyclopedia of all of the chemicals in this big bag of crap that we have. That's called the cell or the nucleus. And they wanted to know what all the effects were. So they wanted an encyclopedia of everything that gets active. And the thing is, at the end of the day, DNA is a molecule. These chromosomes are molecules, and everything in that molecule is going to have an effect. No matter how small, it's going to have some effect in the universe on what happens inside the cell. Is it junk? Well, junk DNA is just a stupid way to look at it. So if somebody says junk DNA, first of all, you want to call them dumb. Well, maybe not, because a lot of biologists still call it junk DNA. But we want to push back on this term. It means that there is some effect. There is some molecular effect. If I put one atom of sodium chloride in my coffee, it is going to have an effect. I may not notice it, but it's going to do something in that coffee, right?
It'd
So
be
that's
a
all.
formula unit of sodium chloride, not a atom of sodium chloride. I'm fucking with you, dude.
So Erica's here.
Yeah, she's apparently we're her background noise for her thesis.
Back to your dumb thesis. Oh, come on, you could come in, Erica,
What was I gonna say?
and say hi.
Oh yeah, and the funny thing about Encode as well is Encode defined functional as any biochemical activity, which includes things like spurious transcription and methylation, which if a region is methylated, that means they're trying to actively repress transcription. And it's still only found something like 72% or 74% has any biochemical activity at all. So that means there's the other 26% that's fairly reasonably like not doing anything.
They learned their lesson. They were. I talked to them by email, and they said, "Encode, don't do that no more."
Yeah, now they try to do stuff based on like, conserved regions of the genome and all that. Like,
Right. They don't use
the
the word
highly functional, because conserved regions is a much better like definition.
Well, Encode
Okay.
never said highly functional. That
Yeah.
was SFT. They said functional. No, but they don't do that no more.
Yeah, I think personally that talking about which regions of the genome are conserved is a much better definition for like determining functionality or at least usefulness. Because if something's being conserved, that means there's active selection pressure keeping that thing together.
Can I read just a really small snippet from, and it's a blog, but it's written by students who are have worked on the Encode product, and it's still through Nature Journal. So I mean, it's still refuted.
Please.
Quote, so where does Encode leave intelligent design? As the 80% functional, specifically in quotes, claim is at best wildly exaggerated, ID proponents have little to celebrate about. But even if it were true that most of the human genome is functional, it wouldn't provide any good evidence for ID, even if it would force biologists to rethink ideas about the evolutionary origins of genome structure and composition. Evidence against a specific version of evolution isn't evidence for design. ID still has to own up to the fact that it won't get anywhere as a scientific hypothesis without evidence or respect for its opposition. End quote. So they're pretty much saying, even if all of the genome is functional, that's just evidence that all of the genome is functional.
Yeah.
Oh.
Design. Essentially, what they're saying is it's the same thing as flat Earths. Just poking holes in the current model without offering up your own doesn't mean that your model is correct. It just means there's problems in the current model. There being problems in the current model doesn't mean that you even have a model to begin with.
I think you mean to say attempting to poke holes in the model.
Oh yeah.
Well, there have been legitimate problems that some creationists have brought up, but again, that it means nothing other than well, this is something we got to take a look at.
And I like what that quote said about how the broad theory is still correct, even if the details are still being worked out.
And I did post a link to that. It's fairly short read, but I think it's pretty good.
Okay, I got to be careful here, but let's see. I don't want to dox this guy. Let's see. Okay. Anyway, we no longer. This is from Encode. We no longer use the word function. We detect biochemical activity along the vast majority of the genome. I think what you're looking for is RNA-seq experiments, poly-A or total, which measure transcription along the genome. Most of these transcripts are later translated if they have a poly-A tail. However, there are lots and lots of functional, in quotes, functional RNAs which are never translated. So, and
Hey, Speed, Erica is balking at being referred to as legendary.
you are
Legendary.
legendary, Eric.
You are legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means you're really fucking old now because you can't be a legend if you're not old.
Erica is epic.
I hope
Uh,
I sincerely hope Erica can come because I want to ask her something about
I wanna
my
ask her
discussion with
something,
Standing
too.
yesterday.
Oh yeah, I saw that Sandy was
Okay.
having a live stream on.
Hold on,
Functionality
guys.
Code. I didn't do anything with it,
I don't know if
There's one
she's going
other-
to be able to come in. She's working on her thesis at the given
Oh,
instant.
which may or may not be more important than random YouTube
Oh,
conversation.
come on, that's not fucking important enough. Okay, there's one more thing I want to point out here. What he said to me. Well, you know what they say. Don't mud wrestle a pig. He's talking about creationists. You'll just get dirty, and the pig enjoys it. That's what Encode thinks of creationists. So there you go. So
Yeah.
who's this? Who's this person? Who just came in?
Dan.
Hello.
Oh, Danny.
Rational was there. Like, I was actually siding with the creationists yesterday on some point, and Nephilim, because he knew I was an atheist, was just disagreeing. And it reminded me, it reminded me of that Key and Peele skit. Remember, like when Obama, have y'all seen Key and Peele? Like where
Oh,
Obama,
Yeah,
yeah,
not
So-
that one.
where Obama it tricks the Republicans into accepting his policies because he knows that they're just going to disagree with him. So it says, okay, we should make the government smaller, and they disagree simply because simply because he's Obama, right? And then they I don't know if anyone remembers that skit. They should look it up. But that's how it felt like, because I was like agreeing with this guy named Dr. Carter. I don't really know, but anyway.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Carter dude, was he creationist or evolution?
He is a creationist, right? And
Oh.
so, at least that. I mean, Rational was there, so I don't know if. But the point was that Nephilim had to disagree, just had to, because he could not stand the stench of someone that was not a Christian or a creationist.
Right. That James Carter, I don't know. I was listening to some of his stuff, and he's I think he's got a degree in biochemistry or something, or a bachelor's or something. But my impression was he doesn't really know what the hell he's talking
Is he
about.
actually a Earth creationist? Like I said, he seemed
Well, I'm not sure.
fairly well informed from like the 30 seconds I listened to of it last night.
Leo got his hand up.
I didn't know Erica applied for a doctorate, or is applying for a doctorate. Now I do want her to come in because I have questions.
I think now she's trying to finish up her master's, and then she's going to go into a doctorate program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a really big question for her.
She needs to go to Oxford. She doesn't go to Oxford.
Well, she was in the UK for a while, and they got screwed over by Corona. But
Does nobody give a shit that I have a question?
I do.
Listening.
Okay, here's my question, and John may know it, Erica may know it, somebody may know it. A rational empiricist and I recorded a video, and we want to stream it up live. And I don't know how the fuck to do that.
So the video is already recorded.
Do like a premiere with it.
Yeah, you just got to do
You do it through YouTube, not StreamYard.
You can do it on YouTube, a premiere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how most people do.
When you go to upload a video, you have the option to schedule it as a premiere, and then you just pick the time. And once that time hits, it does like a 2-minute countdown or a 1.5-minute countdown automatically, and then your video premieres. And it will play as if it's a live video, but it's a pre-recorded video that you're premiering rather than it actually being recorded in real time.
Oh, Erica. I mean, you just keep wanting us more and more for you to come in the room. Like,
I know you got to come in there.
You're not G-Man's channel.
have to work on that thesis.
So I saw that thing was happening, so I hopped on G-Man's channel for like 30 seconds because I was just listening passively, and they had a pretty interesting conversation about this one dude who didn't know what a gene pool was or how like species works. And so I jumped into the StreamYard to talk to him, and then as soon as I came in, G-Man was like, all right, so we're going to go to Jungle Jargon for his turn. And so I got stuck talking to Jungle Jargon.
Oh, no.
I feel
It was
sorry
only like
for you.
15 minutes, but
That's always a bad day.
yeah, he
Is he even an agent? Like, I'm just not convinced yet.
He's a nice guy.
He was really struggling with
Well,
the
they're
concept
nice
of
robots. Have you
haplogroups
seen Star
and
Wars?
how phylogenetic trees work.
I mean, R2-D2's nice.
You said jungle jargon's a nice guy.
Yeah, he is kind of a nice guy. I mean,
he has some pretty horrible fucking ideas.
Oh yeah, but he's pleasant to talk to.
He's real pleasant.
I didn't have any problems with talking.
He's real pleasant when he's talking about that homosexuals should all be killed.
Yeah, but when you got,
does he say that?
I mean,
doesn't surprise me.
Camp, yeah.
Yeah, but John, when you have rocky soil with no water and it's kind of shitty, nothing's going to grow out of that. So you can't judge him based on where his ideas are coming from.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not allowed to judge people by the words that are coming out of their fucking mouth.
Oh, so LPP got tired.
Yeah, bring that up.
He did that last time I came on a channel when he was on. Within 30 seconds he was gone. Leo has his 5 fingers. Leo, you got hold it up 5 fingers. Am I supposed to guess?
No, I'm raising my hand.
Emoji palm and her 5 sisters.
Oh, I thought you were giving me a dementia test.
So is it my turn to go yet?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've noticed that a lot about quite a few people recently on. Oh wait, no, Immutable isn't here. He was there when this happened on Rage's channel. He did a New Year's stream, which is like a little stream that he had around. I think it was actually a little after midnight my time. And Otangelo came on and tried to do his normal spiel with fine tuning, and he started to go off about how, and he'd only been on for maybe I don't even think 10 minutes at this point, and he started to go off about how quarks are fine tuned, and I piped in and I said, well, that can't be true, because if strong interactions was fine-tuned with the strong nuclear force, which involves quarks and gluons and yada yada yada, were fine-tuned, it shouldn't be described by an octet, which is just a particular set. So there's 3 charges in strong interactions that should equal up to 9 different states, but we only get 8, which is not finely tuned at all. This doesn't even make sense, and they just left.
Huh.
Well, right, like what I think you and who else was, you guys are the kings of that, like backing Otangelo into a corner by the doorway, and then he goes out the door.
Well, that guy that was talking to him yesterday, who was at Speed? I couldn't stand. I couldn't. I mean, it was letting him get away with too much. I think I was getting kind of irritated.
Oh, you mean Immutable?
Yeah, I was.
He's a regular.
Immutable is too nice with Otangelo.
But it's not even about nice or mean or nice. It's that he was just letting him get away.
He's not aggressive enough. He doesn't hold Otangelo's feet to the fire. That's why Otangelo doesn't like having discussions with me.
Yeah, because Otangelo makes a claim, and then all he has to do is say, "What's the argument?" But what Otangelo does is make some other claim, and then Immutable tries to address the new claim.
Yeah,
and then it just drives me nuts.
Well, and that's why like he'll leave, like if he's been at many streams with me on Nox channel, and inevitably somebody in the room will make him leave because they're doing exactly what you're saying. They're calling him out for his inaccuracies and not letting him like gish galop, like stop. And then he gets all rage. Oh, but you keep interrupting me. You're not letting me finish. I mean, it's because you already made 4 errors already in 2 sentences. We can't let you go.
I know.
on.
I've never really understood. I mean, like, what is? It's not just. It's just there's this type of person where they try to present an argument and there's something wrong with the first premise, like. And then you want to, before they continue, right? You want to address that point. Otherwise, you get a shotgun of points, right? And that's just not a practical thing to address all of them, right?
Well, the one time Otangelo was in here, John was here. I think Walker might have been, or maybe it was Andrew. But Otangelo, he brought up that the odds of finding life are 1 in 10 to the negative 10th to the 122nd, and of us pointed out that's literally not what the paper says. And then Manny's like, well, Otangelo tried to move on to something else like right after that, and Manny was like, no, Otangelo, you were wrong there. Can you admit that you were wrong? And didn't say anything and just left the broadcast.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
Then it was like, I don't know if anybody ever saw this. It was probably over a year ago now. Yeah, it would have to be over a year ago because it was on Non Sequitur. when Kent Hovind and Aaron Rod debated, and Aaron decided before the debate, when Kent makes a mistake, I'm going to stop and correct him each time. And so by the time it was over, like Kent was just like a fucking puddle of rage. And then he on his channel afterwards, it was like, oh, well, Aaron Rod, he interrupted me 185 times. They actually went through and counted it. And it's like, well, yeah, he interrupted you because he couldn't let you go on with your normal gish glop. So by the time you shut your mouth, there would be 30 things to correct instead of just one at a time, you know?
Now you can set the date and the time you want it to premiere.
Do y'all know a guy named Luca? He's like Italian. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a really nice guy. I talked to him yesterday too, met him, and yesterday too. He was very, very delightful to talk to.
Unfortunately, he's Italian, so I've never talked to him because he only can ever hop on live streams that are at like 1 a.m. my time.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I'm glad that sentence ended.
Yeah, he seems cool
because it really started fucking really.
Unfortunately, he's Italian.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Period.
What the fuck is coming next?
I think you meant to say, unfortunately, he's in Italy.
Yeah, well, my language could have been a bit more precise.
Because you could be here and be Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
you're talking about midnight.
Just imagine if YouTube broke down right at that exact moment, and like
everyone would just think I'm racist for the rest of it.
Those goddamn wop dagos.
Wait, is Italy a race? Italian a race?
Yeah, no, bigoted.
Yeah. Why not? I think it could
xenophobic. Be well, yeah. I mean,
y'all are not race realists, right?
I would say it's not a race because race doesn't exist. Kleins exist, but race does not.
Do you think like race exists like chairs exist in the same sense?
No, I would say that race exists like gender exists.
I think race exists.
Well, I don't think they're chairs.
Well, they're not chairs. No, I don't think they're chairs.
Yeah, the same way I don't think now. Like I think it's all practical stuff. Like I think it's practical to say that they're races, but not like it's not like we're discovering atoms or something when we're talking about races.
Well, there's basically, if you were to statistically look at genes, you would find differences. Eventually, in the races, very little, but you're going to find some. I mean, how in the fuck?
Really. So if you actually look at the haplotyping groups, right?
You could. I think you could grant that.
Yeah. Huh? Okay.
You could grant that you can grant there's genetic differences, but that doesn't mean that therefore race is real.
Well, but not even that.
Well,
there's certain like the most basal human groups all exist inside of Africa. Meaning, and these groups aren't a monophyletic grouping. It's paraphyletic, right? So there are, Africans who are far more closely related to any European, like they share more recent ancestry with that European than they do with, most other groups in Africa. So there is no real biological basis to race. Right? It's just things that humans make up.
Do y'all think water is H2O?
That's objectively true. Do I think water is H2O?
Oh, identical to it?
Yes.
Oh, that's insane.
Why am I having trouble? Oh, okay.
Wait, are you a race realist?
No, I'm not a race realist, but
No. I'm asking Speed because he seems to think that race can be defined genetically.
Yeah, I'm a race realist. What the fuck?
Wait, how?
You can't be. No, Speed. Don't do this.
Yeah, no.
What the hell? Okay. So basically you've got a species, right? And they go to two different places. This one goes to this continent, that one goes to that continent. Okay, these guys are going to develop some mutations, and these guys are going to develop some mutations, and there's going to be a difference, a delta between these two groups eventually, right?
Well, yeah, but that's what
the fuck happened.
Well, no, because that's an overly simplistic view of how humans define race.
Who's going to deconvert them?
Lineages.
I think that's why this isn't an issue, because I think Speed's definition is not the same as when you're talking about like racism and stuff like that.
Yeah,
because what the fuck are you talking about racism? Wait a minute! I wasn't done with my sentence.
I'm sorry, John.
Okay.
Sorry, John.
But look, here's the thing. Speed is right, because even if you took, white or black people from the same region on the earth, and you did that, and you separated them, and over time there would be differences in them, or you look at, one what we would call colloquial one race versus another. Like white people don't get sickle cell anemia, so there's, some kind
But if they did, they wouldn't cease to be white, or they wouldn't be more black.
They wouldn't cease. Well, if they did, yeah. And if frogs had 2 assholes, then you could pick them up like a 6-pack. I mean, I don't know what, but if they did.
I don't get how genetic variances could define races, because there's genetic variances between me and my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all are two different races.
It's like saying that black bears and brown bears are 2 different races of bear. No, they're just fucking bears.
That's why I said a minute ago, wait a minute, Speed's using it in a different manner. It could be that John is right, that maybe there's some we might be talking past each other.
Okay, can I just explain my point super fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this haplogroup L0 is basically mostly Khoisan people who live in like northern South Africa, right? And then this L1 haplogroup is mostly like your Niger-Congo people. So like your no, L5 is Niger-Congo. L1, I believe, is your Nilotic people, right? From like Ethiopia and shit. So you have all of these groups that most people would consider black, quote unquote, but they're all more distant. They're like progressively more and more distantly related from everyone else. So like a white person in this N group is far more closely related to a Niger-Congo person than they are to a Nilotic person than they are to a Khoisan person. So I think that just very obviously goes to show that races aren't a monophyletic group. Now they have real social implications because humans, our minds define things based on how things look, but that doesn't actually match up with our lineage's history.
Okay,
well, and I would say, like, when you talk about like the socio-political aspect of racism, quote quote, it goes on like what you just said, that basing it on how people look and maybe how they act, whereas speaking of it genetically is like a whole different conversation.
Well, that's
what genetically, there's literally no such thing as race.
Yeah, like, that's
genetics, that does not exist.
There's not a human race in genetics.
No, literally, there's not at all.
Wait, Leo, I want to understand. I think I agree with Leo, but I want to know if it's for different reasons. Leo, like I said earlier, do you think that like a black person, like identifying a black person is very much like identifying a chair or a table?
No.
Okay, so you think chairs and tables exist?
Well, yeah.
Oh, do you think there's?
I'm sitting in a chair in front of a table.
Okay, but do you think there's like rigid criteria or principled criteria for what a chair is?
For the most part, yes.
Not.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to approach this. I mean, I don't really think that there's principled criteria for it. It's like asking for principled criteria. Have you ever heard of? I know. Okay, we'll start with this. Have you ever heard of a family resemblance concept?
Nope.
A family resemblance concept. Oh, he was already doing it. He did it before I even. Okay.
I can read fucking minds in the future.
Oh my gosh! I literally said it and I looked up and it was already written. That's so crazy. Okay. Family resemblance concepts are basically concepts that don't have any essential property. Okay, it's a concept that can pick out from a set of properties that potentially constitute it. Right. So a classic example is like a sport or a game. Right. What defines a sport or a game? Does it have to be physical? Does it have to be offense, defense? Do people have to acquire points? So there has to be balls. That sounded, yeah. But the point is that I don't really think it's a substantive like a disagreement if someone were to disagree about what a game is, because people have various different concepts of what a game is. And I think that video games are a sport, and then my uncle would never think so, right? Because we have different concepts about what a sport is, but we do have some shared properties in which we can identify as basketball as a sport, right? But the point is that we don't really have an argument for why I should adopt his concept or he should adopt my concept. So I think this is basically the same issue. This applies to, I think, chairs and tables as well as races, right?
I don't think it applies to race, because there can be an evidentiary basis, and there is a strong one, that race literally doesn't exist. There's nothing in genetics or biology indicating that race is a real tangible thing.
I agree. Well, let's just say that I don't really think race has to do with genetics, right?
Well, then you would be right, because there is no such thing as race in genetics.
Right, but in the same way that I don't think that water and H2O can be identical either, right? So. But yeah, I think we have the same conclusion.
But those are identical.
Yeah, I don't think so, right? I think.
Well, I mean, then you would be wrong.
Well, I think you would be wrong.
Well, I'm not.
That's
Like,
like-
I mean,
that-
from,
that's-
from
well,
an
I'm not
actual
either.
chemistry
Right.
standpoint,
that's
I'm not
literally
wrong. I
saying
have an
that, like,
evidentiary
methane and
basis
CH4
for.
are not the same thing.
I don't think those are the same thing either, right? But
What?
I mean,
I
but
can see- wait,
there's
how?
a lot of nuance here, though. So
Not in the
point-
chemistry,
Well,
there's
I
not.
was just gonna say, where's the nuance in the difference between water and H2O? Like,
That's like
point
saying, what's the difference between H2O and H2O?
No, okay, well, first of all, do you have to know what H2O is to know what water is?
Well, they're the same thing, so that question doesn't make sense in my mind.
Okay, so in order to know about water, you have to know about H2O?
Well, that's like asking in order to know about water, you have to know about water.
Okay, so do you think people 3,000 years ago knew what water was,
Yeah.
but they didn't know what H2O was?
Yes, they would. Yes, they did. They just didn't call it H2O.
Well, you're telling me wait, there's a problem here.
You're saying that the atoms
Are
are
we
different than
declining
the
or
things that they make up.
crypting?
When was H2O discovered as a molecule?
I have no idea.
Okay, but it was not 3,000 years ago. So what do you mean by H2O if not hydrogen and then two hydrogens and oxygen?
Well, you're
covalently
basically
bonded?
saying,
Which is what water is.
are you saying that metal, like an iron bar, they wouldn't have known that it was iron because they didn't know it was made of atoms?
Well, I'm saying that not exactly. Well, the point is that our phenomenal experience of something, I don't think can be identical with the parts or the what constitutes that thing, right? So when I look at water, I see that it's mostly clear, it's liquid, it freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, or it freezes and it can also steam. It quenches my thirst, right? That's my concept of water. Now, here come along scientists saying that if you were to zoom in on that substance, you would expect new experiences, like you would see, but something that H2O would predict, for instance, right? I don't know. I've never actually seen an H2O molecule. I don't know if that's even possible. I think it is, but
so are you saying something along the lines of, okay, like say you look at a cake, and you like cake, you buy cake, you have your loved ones make you cake because you like eating cake, but you never made a cake yourself because you have no idea what goes into it. So are you saying there's a difference between a cake and the constituents that make up a cake? I mean,
I think essentially that's what I'm saying, right? That
that would be true. There's a difference between water and oxygen molecules.
Well, do you think there's a difference between water and then
specifically H2O in water is no difference?
You see, first of all, I think there's a sense in which you can say water is H2O, but it's not going to be on a conceptual basis. Can you say that they're identical? I think when scientists want to say, or anyone wants to say, water's H2O, what we're saying is that if that generates a certain set of predictions based on the thing that you call the thing that you experience as liquid, quenches your thirst, clear for the most part. I mean, like when we point to a water bottle and we say that's water. And clearly, there's much more than H2O in that bottle of water, right? There's oxygen molecules. God knows what kind of plastic synthesized molecules are in there. There's all sorts. There could be all sorts of things, right? But
there's all kinds of minerals in water.
You're right, right. So the point is that our sense of water is actually conceptually distinct from our sense of H2O, right?
I would still disagree.
Well, I don't know if we disagree.
Well, because like minerals and all that stuff that's in the water is in the water, but it's not the water.
Yeah, that's
just like the fish that are in the ocean are in the ocean, but they're not the ocean.
Okay, say that. So the point is that if water is H2O, and if the thing in my water bottle is not just merely H2O, when I point to that,
then you have water and other things in that water as well.
No, why'd you erase that? That was beautiful.
But if I point at the water bottle, would I be even in any sense wrong for saying that that's water? In any sense, Leo?
No, because there's synonyms.
Leo is the wood chipper in this analogy.
Wait. What are synonyms? H2O and water is what you're saying? Is synonyms?
Whatever.
But there's other things in that bottle. If I say what's in the bottle,
but those wouldn't be water.
But those were
those are impurities in the water.
I muddied the water when I brought up minerals because that's not water. That's something that's in the. If I take a swim in a pool, I'm not water.
I think the point I'm making is rather trivial. I'm saying that the phenomenal quality.
I got to tell you, that doesn't surprise me at all, Danny.
Trivial meaning you should accept it. It's not controversial if you really think about it, right?
Not at all.
The point is that our phenomenal the phenomenal qualities of water is distinct from H2O. Because when I look at water, experience water, understand what water does to my body, see how it behaves, right? I can do that without understanding anything about H2O.
I would agree with that in principle. My phenomenal experience of a pencil is different than what quarks are, but I mean, but that's where I would argue the property emergence comes into play.
Hey, real quick, speed. Just going off of something that Erica posted. Were you channeling?
Kent
Hovind
Hovind,
when
yes.
you wrote the word water.
Water?
I'm channeling Hovind, right? Water.
Hey, real quick, just to further derail it, I have a something about what is it? The family resemblance what
Concept?
Yeah. So, like, have you ever dated somebody and then, like, after you've dated them for a while, like, they introduce you to their brother and they look too much alike and it just ruins it?
I mean,
or you run off with the brother.
I mean, has anybody heard of the analytic synthetic distinction?
I've heard of it like twice.
This is
I
basically
have no idea what it is.
This is basically what I'm talking about.
Can
right?
I attempt to steel man your argument using not really an analogy, but a different
there's
scenario?
two things we can do yes, but let me just say this. There's two things we can do. We can convince speed out of race realism, right? Or we can talk about water.
I don't think we determined that speed is a race realist.
Well, he seems like he is based on what he said. Or we could talk about water being H2O and how that relates to the analytic synthetic distinction.
Both sound very interesting.
Well, which one do we want to do?
I want you, because I think I already know it, and so explain it to Leo, and that way I can, without revealing my ignorance, see if I'm right.
Okay. Well, very briefly,
analytic synthetic, yeah.
The analytic synthetic distinction usually stems from Kant, but Hume and Leibniz had their own kind of distinctions that are very similar. But the actual terms analytic synthetic distinction really was Kant was known for this distinction. So basically, when an analytic identity is usually true by meaning, or as Kant would say it, that one side of the predication is contained in the other side, right? So, for instance, a triangle is a shape, right? The notion of a triangle has in it the proposition that it is a shape, right? So, if that's to say, it's necessary to know what a shape is in order to know what a triangle is. If you don't know what a shape is, there's no way to know what a triangle is, right? So it's contained. Another classic example in philosophy is a bachelor. A bachelor is an unmarried man. If you didn't know what marriage was, you would have no clue, no way of knowing what a bachelor was, because once again, the concept of bachelor is contained in the concept of the concept of marriage or unmarried, right, is contained in bachelor. Okay, so that's analytic. Okay, synthetic identities don't operate that way. So there are true, like, so if I say Superman is Clark Kent, right, someone's concept of Superman may not involve Clark Kent, but they still know who Superman is. The concept of Clark Kent is not contained in Superman, actually, right? And the way to establish that kind of predication, right, is by other facts about how the world is, right? Not based on the meaning of Superman. Okay.
So you said identity. I thought that analytic and synthetic had to do with different types of knowledge. No,
different kinds of identity is what they would say, right? Okay. So when we say a bachelor is identical to an unmarried man, right? Versus when we say Clark Kent is identical to Superman, what Kant is saying is that there's something really different about these two claims, right? One is true by meaning because the concept is contained with the former. The latter concept is contained with the former, but in the second one, there's it's not a conceptual truth that Clark Kent is Superman, because the creators of the DC writers could have made it such that Clark Kent and Superman were actually distinct entities in a way where we would not be justified in saying that they're the same thing. But they could never create a story where someone's a bachelor and married, because that would be a contradiction, right? There's actually technically not a contradiction in saying that Superman is not Clark Kent, because the story could have been rewritten, right? So that is the distinction. Now, when we talk about water, or here's a good example. Being male is having XY chromosomes. Okay? So, or male is a person with XY chromosomes. This, to me, is a synthetic identity, not an analytic, right? Because it could have been that males had different chromosomes, right? They would still have penises, they would be hairy, that they would be taller, deeper voice. All these phenomenal qualities could remain, right? The experience of seeing a male could remain, while the genetics could have been very different, right? So to me, saying something like a male is a person with XY chromosomes is synthetic, not analytic, right? Which means that someone could see themselves as male and actually not have XY chromosomes, right? The same.
Yeah, that's gender theory.
Well, I think I want to say there's a distinction between gender and sex. I was talking about sex in this case, but maybe there's gender theory, of course, goes over sex, and maybe you're right. But the point is that when we look at water's H2O, I think I don't think Kant gave this example, but in very many this is another classic example, other than the Superman's Clark Kent, of a synthetic identity, right? Water's H2O is synthetic. The world could have been different, according to most philosophers. There are people like Hilary Putnam and Saul Kripke that think that water is essentially H2O, which is a kind of necessity there, that if you'd had water, if you're pointing at something that you think is water and it was not H2O, it can't be water. That's kind of what Leo is saying. But that you have to.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, you have to accept a lot of what I would say a lot of crazy philosophy to do that, because they have to. They're talking about something that's essential to something else without it being analytic, right? Because we would say unmarried man is essential to the concept of bachelor, but when we're talking about synthetic identities, if there's a kind of essentialism there, it can't be because of meaning. It's going to be because of something else, and that to me seems it. Well, yeah. So there's a lot. You see, I think that all scientific truths are contingent truths, right? That's the predominant view in philosophy.
Contingent on what?
Contingent doesn't mean dependent in modality. It means could have been otherwise, right?
In what, where, when? How do we know that?
Well, have you ever heard of possible world semantics or possible?
Well, yeah, but possible doesn't mean it is.
Right, that's true, right? It is.
So how do we know that the universe could have looked different? We don't know that.
Well, that gets into different kinds of possibilities. So traditionally there are four, right? There's logical possibility, physical possibility, epistemic possibility, and metaphysical possibility, right? So the most broadest and most commonly referred to is logical. The second most common is physical possibility, right? It's logically possible that I can jump over the moon, but some people might say it's not physically possible given the natural laws that we know, or our models of physics or whatever, right? So, and then there's metaphysical possibility, which is one of the most controversial kinds of possibility. And a lot of theists rely on metaphysical possibility to make sense of God's limitations, right? But I'll just let you know that Saul Kripke and Hilary Putnam, when they say water is essentially H2O, they're appealing to metaphysical possibility, not physical possibility, right? So I think you have to accept that kind. Metaphysical possibility is very, very controversial, right? But the point is that when we say going back to our original conversation, right? A black person has this set of genes. A male has XY chromosomes. Water is H2O. It seems like these could all be false in a different hypothetical, right? Which means that the concept of Superman, the concept of a black person, the concept of water is distinguished from the other side of the predication if it's indeed a synthetic identity, which is what I'm trying to argue or explain. That's essentially.
I mean, I don't mean this personally in any way, but yeah, the last 10 minutes just was an example of why people hate philosophers.
Yeah, well, creationists hate scientists, so I wonder if it's in the same sense.
Oh, it could have been
different.
No.
I mean, everything you just said to me was very interesting, but the fact of the matter is, like, the average person would be.
Oh, I agree. I think most people don't care, right? Most people don't care, let alone like actually think that what I'm saying has any importance, right? But I think it is really important. Like, for instance, I invoke the analytic synthetic when I'm arguing against people that are think that sex and gender are the same, which I think there's a distinction. I bring in the analytic synthetic distinction.
There's also a definitional difference between them.
Yeah, there's
Well,
a definition difference and a logical difference. We don't even have to go about philosophy to show that there's a difference between those two.
Wait, you be careful. Look, you're saying the same thing I'm saying in different words. Definition means analytic, right?
I mean, look,
If
here's
you say-
the thing too, is like I don't understand. I've always not understood when, like, I understand when people say I don't like philosophy and all that, but like people try and deny the fact that philosophy has anything to do with other disciplines. It's like every other discipline that humanity has created has some type of philosophical contingency or basis.
I'm inclined to agree. I think what happens though, and this happens to me all the time, is in some rooms I make the mistake of saying that I have a philosophical background, like I'm educated with respect to it, and then people use that against me, right? Oh, you only have the approach that philosophers approach. This is a scientific issue, or this is a mathematical issue, and as a way of avoiding what I'm saying, right?
Science and math are both philosophies, so I don't.
Yeah.
Well,
although
now,
I'm
we
extreme
talked about that,
reductionist.
Leo, but I don't think that that's true because
I do.
But I think we're just using different definitions, as you would say, right? I think there what's really funny is that there are disagreements about among philosophers about what philosophy is, right? There's a whole discipline called metaphilosophy that studies what philosophy even is. So there's even disagreement about what we mean by philosophy, or what? No, well, there's not disagreement there, but what we ought mean by the term. I think that to reduce philosophy to anything that has to do with knowledge is, I think, it's not. I don't think it's a practical use of the word.
Yeah, I don't use it that way.
Okay, I will have to talk about. Well, that gets us into a rabbit. That's the third rabbit hole if we go down that one. But the first thing is the race realism stuff, right?
Yeah,
So,
let's do that.
So the point is that a black you can know, I think, what a black person is.
No, let's quit talking about people and start talking about beetles.
Okay, let's talk about beetles. Beetles are monophyletic lineages. Races are not.
Oh, the race of beetles? I just don't know what you mean by race.
Wow, he got that. He did a big U-turn there on that one, man.
What?
Okay, well, not okay. Let's talk about beetles. Beetles are this. It's not racist. Right
now, Speed. If you ever say that I am going down rabbit holes, and then I just remember that you were races of beetles on your stream. Okay.
It kind of confused me when he first wrote it because I thought they were all British.
That would be beetle. Yeah. Okay. Races of beetles. Basically, you've got a diverging population. There's a fucking bridge in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. And this population ends up with a particular statistical package of genes, and this population ends up with a statistical package of genes, right? Yeah. And yet they're the same species at some point, but there is a difference between these two. These things are not equal. Okay, they're approximately equal. So there's a difference in the package of genes because they have occupied different geographical locations. They've been separated.
So I have a question. Are you saying black people aren't humans? They're approximately a human?
No.
I don't think.
I think that's a
joke.
I was fucking with him. I know that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
Is a black person a beetle?
I don't know. Speed, is it?
So the difference is though that humans don't consider races populations of people. A population would be more akin to like an ethnicity, right, or like a nationality. Because a population is the people in a region that are there's gene flow between them. But what I'm saying is that
you made a good point here. Okay, 50 years ago, the average person saw gender and sex as being different, right?
Yeah.
Or the same 50 years ago, right? And 50 years ago, people had some pretty fucking weird ideas about race. Let's not let people's weird ideas about shit get in the way of what we're talking about. So if you don't like the word race, then we'll use the word. What would you call? Okay, Walker. What would you call a species?
Well, let's go back to
differentiated but same species.
Let's go back
to throwing
Kent Hovind into the mix again and call them kinds.
I just think that approximating them with different populations and subpopulations of beetles isn't an apt analogy for the different variety that we see in humans, right?
Why?
Because
we separated geographically.
Well, but that doesn't mean that they're different populations. So like the Khoisan people, like I was saying, would be a population, and they would be a population that people generally perceive of as black. But so are the Nilotic people. Those are a different population that people perceive as black. But the Nilotic people share a more recent common ancestry with me as a white dude than they do with the Khoisan people. So these are not true populations that are monophyletic, right? The idea of race is inherently paraphyletic. Which means it doesn't really have any basis in biology. There's no distinction. There's no distinct categories you could make to categorize the different races.
So this beetle has 2 spots on its back.
Okay.
And this beetle has 3 spots on its back.
Okay, wait. So let's
Can I draw an analogy quickly?
Okay.
I was going to say that saying that race is different enough genetically that we can define these things as races is like using the word race, but instead of skin color, it's eye color. Yeah, obviously there's genetic differences between people with blue eyes and people with brown eyes, but it is so trivial that trying to turn it into a separate group or trying to group them is just not useful in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, so you're saying it's not useful to group these beetles?
Okay, wait, speed. So
the
let's
beetles
say
and
that
humans aren't the same thing.
Beetles. There's 3 groups of beetles, but there's 2 groups that have 3 spots, 1 group that has 2 spots. The group that has 3 spots, the second group that has 3 spots is more closely related to the group that has 2 spots. Sometime in the past, one of the 3-spot beetle groups lost the extra spot, right? So now you have parts of the population with 3 spots that are more closely related to the part of the population with 2 spots. That's what I'm saying, how race is not real. It's as real as saying that 3-spotted beetles are a monophyletic group, even though there's some 3-spotted beetles that share more recent ancestry with the 2-spotted beetles.
Okay, run that by me again. Though we have beetles that are predominantly 3 spots. Every now and then one might revert to a 2-spot, or one of these might revert to a 3.
Well, okay, add in a third population in the middle of them, right?
Okay, right here is 1 spot.
No. Add a third population of 3-spotted beetles that is more closely related to the 2-spotted beetles.
Okay, hang on a second.
And the 2 spots is a derived synapomorphy, and the 3-spotted beetles would be the plesiomorphic condition.
Okay, so we got what we got? One more 3-spotted beetle?
No, that's a polytomy, right? Connect that line to the lineage that ends in the 2-spotted beetles.
Okay, not sure what you want.
So draw another line coming out of the 2-spotted line, and then draw a 3-spotted beetle.
Right here?
I can't see. No, like out halfway between the line and the dot, where the line starts in the dot. Yes, and draw a 3-spotted beetle right there.
Okay.
So is 3-spotted beetles still an apt analogy for race? Because now it's a better analogy, right? The 3-spotted beetles, there is no distinct biological category that puts those 2 beetles together, because the bottom 3-spotted beetles share a more recent ancestor with those 2-spotted beetles, right? Okay. So now you can't categorize them. You can categorize them on phenotypic differences, but you can't categorize them on actual genetic and ancestry differences.
Well, I don't see why you couldn't, but
isn't that just the phenotypic line?
Okay, but if you looked at the genomes of all 3 of these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would find 3 distinct genomes.
Well, yeah, and I would if you want to
they would group more tightly with each other. A's genomes would group more tightly with A, B with B, and C with C.
Yeah, that is true. But
so why in the fuck not call that is a proper subpopulation?
Wait, is my sister a different subpopulation than me? She has different genes than I do.
What's that?
Is my sister a different population than I am since she has different genes?
Technically, no. You could go down to that level.
No. Different lineage, but not different population.
Different lineage.
There's gene flow between. Obviously,
there's populations
are inherently above the individual level.
Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of other variations here besides the 3 spots.
But yeah,
you're going to find that. But you're going to be able. The thing is, you're going to be able to walk into the forest.
you guys are. Yeah, I'm gonna up the room's IQ quotient. By about 20%. I'm gonna head out of here because.
No, it's good.
Okay,
right.
we'll see you, John.
See you, dude.
Just
All
real
right.
quick though, I just want to point something out real quick.
We
And
bored
by no
John to
means-
death.
What's that?
We bored you to death.
No. It's just that I have nothing to add to this. I'm going to keep listening, but
Okay.
just I have nothing to add to it. This is just a learning experience for me. But I did want to point out, and by no means am I claiming to say that I am the most social, graceful person in the world, because I absolutely am not. But something that Danny posted in the chat, I just wanted to point out. I think this was kind of what Speed was trying to point out to you yesterday after I left. No, not that one. It was further up because Immutable had posted something, and then Danny said, "You seem confused about what I'm saying."
Yeah, you sound like a creationist, Danny.
I am a creationist. I think that natural processes created me.
But anyway, I just had to, because it made me chuckle when I read it, so I just had to point that out.
Yeah.
Well, he is Immutable. Is confused.
Well, that's fine, and you could explain it to him, but saying it that way to begin with, if I didn't know either of you two, and then I came in to watch the stream and I saw that exchange in the chat, I would think that you and Immutable were going at one another.
Okay, Danny, do you know what Immutable's doing right now? He's walking back from the mall and he's wrestling fucking alligators. Okay, you don't want to fuck with that guy. Don't fuck with that guy.
All right, but anyway, have a good one, guys.
He's wrestling alligators with a beer in his hand, and he hasn't yet spilled a drop.
He had a cigarette in his mouth, beer in his hand, cigarette in his mouth.
Rule number 1: I'm number 1.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Rule number 1: I always win.
you sound like Nephi. Yeah, I guess so. So just what I was saying is, if we bring it back to people, because race is a human.
Why do you want to keep talking about people? Because that's sort of a
humans define
loaded fucking
races.
subject.
Because humans define races. You can't say that A is black people, B is Asians, and C is white people.
A is a race of beetles with 3 spots, and B is a race of beetles with 2 spots.
But those aren't
Okay.
races of beetles. They're just beetles with different phenotypic, different phenotypes.
Yeah. So basically, under your definition, if you wanted to say that the different ethnic groups of people, like Nilotic people and Khoisan people, are different races of people, you could make that argument. It's just that's not how people use the term race. If someone saw a Nilotic person and a Khoisan person, they would just think, "Oh, that's a black person."
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can make this a lot easier. These are literally the same pen. The same brand, same style. The only difference is this one's black and this one's blue. Are these 2 different races of pen? Are they the same fucking pen?
They're
Well,
definitely different races.
These populations of beetles are obviously different.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and there are differences between the populations of humans. I'm just saying there is not any categorical definition of race that you could put the Western definitions of race into and have it still make sense.
But that's true of every biological category.
Yeah, but there is a such thing as lineage. There's always a such thing as lineage.
But what
Yeah.
this amounts to is that you are going to have family resemblance. Okay, you're gonna have all these fuzzy areas, with population A and population B. You're gonna have all these variations springing off of them. But overall, if you were to statistically analyze this, you would find a family resemblance that produces those, basically the 3 spots and the 2 spots. You would find something about this group that always produce 3.
Well, okay, so
invariably produce 3 spots.
Are Manchurian Chinese people and Han Chinese people different races, or are they both Asian? Quote
I
unquote.
don't give a fuck about people. I don't.
Well, but that's how race is used.
Because
in
race
modern
doesn't
society.
apply to anything else. It applies to people.
Yeah, that's just how people use race, right?
Well,
People use
what
race
don't they
to
call them
refer to other people.
subpopulations?
Because
Okay.
race was a term that was coined when we didn't have the understanding of genetics and biology that we currently do. Now
Well,
that we've understood that it is a useless classification that doesn't really accurately portray what is trying to be portrayed. So
Well,
we
there's-
changed it.
There
Now we
was
call
a
it
time when if you wanted to go to China, you had to invest about a year of your fucking life and risk everything to get there, right? and that's basically how subpopulations developed. And people went over there and said, "Oh, these people look slightly different than me, so we're going to call them this."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the definitions of different races.
What the fuck is wrong with that?
People used to say Irish people were their own race.
I mean,
now Irish people are considered white.
The only thing that could be wrong with that is that if you're reading something into that they look different than me and I'm better. Okay, there's no fucking valuation here. So just
thank you. Oh, Nestle said it. There are more differences. I was trying to think of what it was and I couldn't think of it. He said there are more differences within races than between races. So if there are races, then there are also races of races and races of races of races, and where the fuck does it stop?
And now you're just back to the lineages, right?
Yeah.
Now we've got the situation where we got these two populations of beetles that are evolving, and we've got a lot to think about as far as the variations in all of these different types of beetles, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, if you geographically separate these things, right? You geographically separate them. This population is going to statistically drift into one thing, and this is going to drift into another thing. So eventually, we're going to end up with two different species if they keep at it. If they don't get on a fucking jet airplane or maybe get on the internet and start mixing like human beings, right? Mm-hmm. They're eventually going to separate. So beetles do that because beetles do not get on airplanes typically.
Right.
Well, no, they do. They have.
Okay. Yeah,
you guys haven't seen the movie Beetles on a Plane?
Beetles on a plane, yeah. Oh, what a great movie that would be.
Mm-hmm. Especially if they're like big beetles that like eat your face off or something.
Right.
How about termites on a plane?
And they would.
But the plane's made out of wood.
As long as we agree at least that the different definitions that Westerners use for defining races, like, the black, white, Asian, whatever they use, as long as we agree that those are not scientifically accurate terms and they do not accurately describe anything about our reality other than maybe the social experiences that people have, then we're good. Because I agree, lineages diverge.
Well, I never suggested that we use the word race as a scientific term.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think it's a term that should be abolished altogether.
But when you conflate the idea of race with the word population or subpopulation, you're inherently tying scientific value to it.
Yes. The whole point about race realism is that people who are actually racist, who want to define a difference between a racist, try to utilize the science of populations and differences in them to argue that race is a real thing with some biological root, which really just simply isn't the case.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not what you're doing, Speed, but that's what race realists are people who argue that race is a biologically definable thing, and because of that, those different populations should be separate from one another.
Yeah, I think
you keep adding the moral element and the ethical element.
Well, because the whole purpose of race realism, there always is that ethical element to it. That's why people who say they're race realists, if anybody tells me they're a race realist, the first thing I'm going to think, as literally would anybody that I know, they're probably a fucking Nazi.
Yeah. Well, and even if not that, people who say that they're race realists, even if they're not racist, it means that they believe that races are a monophyletic and useful definition.
Yes. But this comes down to why the motivation somebody has generally for defining a legitimate biological difference and calling it race is generally due to bigoted racist. It's due to being a fucking Nazi. I mean, it's like if somebody says, I really just don't like the fact that Jews kind of control the world. They're 9.99999 repeating times out of 10, so essentially 10 times out of 10, haha, little funny math joke. They're a fucking anti-Semite. Simple as that. Nobody who's not an anti-Semite would make that argument.
Why would, I'm a Bohunk, a Polak, and we have big noses, and I'm fucking proud of it. I don't understand why I would be offended by somebody calling me a Polak. I don't know.
Well, I would argue that Polak would be your nationality, not anything that we would call race.
Well, my subpopulation, yeah, and I can if I listen to people in Yugoslavia or Georgia over Russia, their voices sound like my uncles. Not their accent. I'm talking about the timbre of their voices. The timbre of our voices are different. I can recognize that. So I know that we came from that subpopulation.
I would, and I don't know if this is accurate.
So
So correct me if it's not accurate, Walker, but I would prefer to use the term ethnicity, and I do not believe that ethnicity and nationality can be the same thing. So one's ethnicity might be, say, Anglo, but their nationality is Irish. You might have another person whose ethnicity is also Anglo, but their nationality is English. You might have somebody whose ethnicity is African, but their nationality is Sudanese.
Yeah, well, so I would say like saying that someone's ethnicity is African is an oversimplification. That's what I was saying with the whole idea of race being not a monophyletic definition, right? Like there is no if you wanted to boil race, the idea of race down to just basically someone's ethnicity, because there are different gene pools in humans, right? There's different genes that circulate within populations. That's usually at like the village level, right? That's not an entire continent of people. You know, all of Africa is not a population. So black is not an ethnicity. Well, Black American is an ethnicity.
Well, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Ethnicity also has culture type.
Yes, Walker, we know black is a color, not an ethnicity.
I'm trying to draw a family tree here for somebody in Arkansas.
The one thing I did want to say is that nationality is purely a social construct. If nations didn't exist, the concept of nationality wouldn't exist. To me, it's no more a social construct than gender. It's how somebody chooses to identify generally by a consideration of the particular.
Why don't you think race is constructed in the same way? Because that's my view.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's how I would say. Race is a social construct. It doesn't have a biological basis.
Do you think pairs are social constructs?
No.
You think they're real? Okay.
Wait, he thinks what?
I think chairs and cars and these things that like are in our world that we've constructed are wouldn't be there without our society, right?
Oh, bullshit.
But cars are tangible objects extant in physical reality. Race isn't. Gender isn't.
Sure. Look, it's made of.
If you're asking what the description of this physical thing, and we just used the particular vocal sound car, is that a social construct? Yes. Vocalizations and written symbols are obviously social constructs, but the extant physical objects they describe are extant physical objects.
Well, the point is that someone can agree to all the physical facts of an object in the world, but disagree about what it is, because people have various.
Well, if by what it is you mean what we're calling it, yes. But if what it is in what is the objective nature of that thing, I would have to disagree.
I'm pointing to varying concepts, right? So the point is that I have a concept of a black person, a white person, an Asian person. You do too, okay? Now, but our concepts can still vary. Right now, if that's just to say that if we have varying concepts of what a black person is, right? If we establish, well, this is something that's present in my concept and not present in yours, I don't see anything that you could appeal to in the physical world, right, in your observations, to convince the other person or to argue the other person should accept your concept, right? Which is basically. There's a view which I take, and I know this basically is the issue of mereological nihilism is what y'all are talking about, right? And if you Google that, this is the idea that none of these categories are really real, right? The category of tarantula, race, nationality, these are all practical constructions of the mind, right? That's my view, right?
Yes.
And that extends all the way down to taxonomy, right? So the way we differentiate a tarantula and a house spider is for practical purposes, not because we've discovered the category of tarantula or spider, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't see now where you might disagree with me is I don't really see a principal distinction between the category of a black person and the category of tarantula, right? I just don't. I think it's all practical.
So when you say category, you mean the actual concept of the category, not the thing that we're putting into it.
Yeah.
Because obviously there is a difference between a black person and a spider. But...
yeah.
Well, no. Actually, there's under my view, the difference is only going to be mental, not in the.
I would argue the difference is physical. Like spiders are a different physical object with different, actually objective physical properties than humans.
Okay, well, the thing is that don't these physical properties ultimately reduce down to some kind of, as you put it, fundamental particle?
Yeah, but we don't speak about things based on that. We speak about the emergent properties that they possess.
Well, like if I were to say something like, this is kind of like the water example, but I'm going to try not to going back to that because I triggered some people in the chat. But the point is that if you tell me, if I said, Leo, there are no such thing as spiders. All there are is just these waves and these particles that are causing your experience of spiders, right? I mean, what do you gather from that kind of claim?
Nothing.
Okay, but because that's the view of the mereological nihilist, right? That there's really no way to individualize things in the physical world, right? And this is why this is what motivated Spinoza to actually to monism, right? That we're all kind of the same thing, is because of the problem of individuality. Is a huge problem. How do we say that one particular thing is individual as opposed to just a part of a greater whole, right? This is an argument that I use against intelligent design theorists. So, for instance, when the ID theorists tell me, look at the flagella, look how the parts of the flagella, it's very cohesive, it seems like there's a motor, right, all this stuff. I ask them this, right? Why is it that you don't consider the water molecules right in close proximity to the flagella, part of the flagella, right? What's the principled criteria that you're using to establish that the flagella is an individual thing made of parts?
Different physical structure.
No, but you see, I mean, maybe you don't.
If we were taking what you were doing at face value, there wouldn't be a standard model of particle physics because there'd be no difference between a quark and a Higgs boson, but there is.
Okay, so do you think that I don't see why those produced particles wouldn't just further reduce down to a more fundamental product?
They don't. They literally don't.
So there are two fundamental particles. Well, even if there are 2 or 3 fundamental particles in physics, right? The point is that it's a limited. I think it's a limitative, right, to say that a particular thing, or like a spider, the referent of a spider, is just those things in a configuration.
So what you're saying is that the classifications we give to things are really just defining differences between how things are structured and the differences in their
practical. It's a practical endeavor, right? It's practical for me to distinguish a tarantula and a spider because I interact with them very differently, right? I'm actually I hate both of them, but
my girlfriend's a pet tarantula. Very pretty.
A better example would be the difference between a tarantula and a scorpion, right? I can look at scorpions. I actually hate looking at tarantulas. They're far more gross to me than scorpions, right? So if it's very
puppies.
It's very because I interact with these things very differently. But here's the problem: suppose an alien came down, right, and said, I don't really see a necessary category for scorpions because I interact with these things in the same way, right? What argument could we present to say? What argument could we present to say that therefore he should accept our categorization, right? Because our categorization is practical, but that only means that we interact with it differently than they do, right? So if the position that you should look up, I'm going to write it in the chat, is called mereological nihilism. So I think that's kind of the problem of taxonomy and biology in general when it comes to categorization. I think it's less of a problem in physics, but the point is that what the mereological nihilist distinguishes these categories from something called natural kinds, right? So that's what you're talking about, Leo, that maybe these fundamental particles that physics studies, right, are called natural kinds, whereas a spider is not a natural kind, right? So I'm going to put these things in the chat right now. So mereological nihilism and natural kinds. Okay.
Are you putting shit in a private chat?
No, I'm about
I agree to an extent, but there are ways to determine separate lineages. Lineages are absolute, right? And how we define what lineages make up, whatefer species is arbitrary.
But to me, do you think there's a lineage between, let's say, a ferric oxide and oxygen gas and iron?
I'm talking about biology.
Well, the point is that biology reduces down to these chemicals, or at least supervenes, right, on these chemicals, right?
Well, when you're talking about inheritance, you're talking about the gene pool that they got from their ancestors.
But genes reduce down to atoms, right? And fundamental particles, right?
Well,
It's
but they're not getting those same atoms from their parents.
Well, okay. Well, I'm just saying
They're
that
getting the atoms from their food.
lineage to me reduces down to cause effect.
Like I said, I would disagree. I think lineages are a true concept. I think the different names we give to the lineages are arbitrary. The different taxonomic gradients we give to lineages like species or population doesn't really make much of a difference.
No, I just put it in the chat, the two terms, meteorological and natural kinds. So you look at the SCP. But look, in response to you, I think that, look, I agree that it's practical to invent this thing called lineage, right? Because I want to say that I come from my parents and my parents come from my grandparents. There's a useful distinction in saying that someone's adopted and not adopted, right? It might be useful to say that there's a cause-effect relationship between, I think sugar gliders and flying squirrels, right, have a lot of analogous structures, but they have very different, I think it's an example of convergent evolution.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so the point is that lineage might be a practical thing, but I think that it's all just going to reduce down to the cause-effect relationships of various fundamental particles.
Yeah, except that's not how we do it in physics.
Reductionist of how, like,
yeah, it's just reducing everything to what it's made of instead of taking the thing as a whole, despite the fact that, to me, it's almost a commission of the fallacy of composition, that something as a whole is going to have completely different properties than all of its parts.
Look at the definition. This is basically what I'm saying. There are no parts and wholes are mental property, like they're mental attributions of the world. There's no such thing as a part inside the physical world, in the universe.
Yeah, there is.
Well,
a quark is objectively a part of a proton, even if humans never existed to learn that.
What is it a part of? Okay, so it's a part of a quark. What'd you say?
A quark is a part of a proton objectively. It doesn't matter if humans ever existed to discover that. That would still be the case. Okay.
So is the quark part of the universe as well?
Yep.
Okay. What is it not a part of?
Nothing. There isn't a thing that it isn't a part of.
Well, why? Okay, is that quark in my body? Is that part of my body?
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like it's a part of everything. So the notion of part seems to dissolve.
No.
No.
You can have something that's a part of numerous things.
And
you
you
can have something that's a part of everything.
But listen to what you said. But no, listen to what he said. What is it? I asked, what is it not a part of?
Yeah.
I don't know what that question means. That question just seems
nothing. You responded nothing. It's
not a part of me.
Well,
the quark in his body is not a part of me.
Well, is it a part of the universe?
Yeah, but it's not a part of me.
Are you part of the universe?
Yep.
Right. So,
but no.
But it isn't a part of him.
Yeah.
It seems to me that this idea just kind of reduces everything. Like there are no distinctions that can be reasonably made between objects.
No. I'm not saying that. I think it's reasonable. I think it's, and in fact, that's exactly the point. That it's only based on our reasons do we divide things into parts and wholes.
Yeah, but why do we divide things into parts? Is it because they're actually objectively different?
No,
and
I don't think so.
Sense? I do. I'm also a realist. So there is an objective reality, and there are also emergences like an objective thing. A pencil is not an electron, even though a pencil is made up of electrons.
No. I think when you say real, there's scientific anti-realism. There's scientific realism. That's different than realism in general, right?
I'm both.
Well,
I'm a realist and a
I'm
scientific
realist with
realist.
respect to the world. I think that the world is constituted in a certain way, but I'm not a realist with respect to the kind of entities that are postulated in many of the sciences, right? I think that these are practical categories for our that are kind of constituted by how we interact with the world, right? It's practical.
Okay, hang on a second here.
Is meaningless.
I missed my screen. My screen has to go back up. Hold on a minute. Basically, this is like this has a weird parallel to waveform collapse.
Wave function. Enough. There's no such thing as a waveform. It's a wave function.
Wave function. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I still disagree with the part equals whole equals part equals part. Like it's like saying penguins are birds, therefore birds are penguins, therefore sparrows are penguins.
No, okay, look. What it establishes that something that A is a part of B. What's the criteria for that?
That A is a part of B. It depends on. Okay, so
depends on what you would mean by a part.
Hold on. You've got
that's
things in the
that's
world,
problem.
right? And what you guys are arguing about is you're failing to take the God's eye view. And when you take the God's eye view, you see human 1 and human 2, and you have things in the world, and basically they're picking them out, but there's a relationship when they pick them out, and that relates to wave function collapse, right? So basically, you're talking about this fucking relationship, okay? And how you relate to the world and how you're picking out parts in the world, but that doesn't change what's in the world. In the world is actually there. There's actually something about the world that is always going to create this relationship because you are in the damn world too. So you're just a relationship in the world. So when you pick out a chair and you say, that's a chair, and this guy says, no, that's a table. Okay, you're talking about the relationship. You're not talking about the thing in the world.
I think I agree.
And what you seem to want to do, Danny, is throw the fucking thing in the world out with the bathwater.
The thing in the
Well, no,
world.
the point. I am a realist with respect to the sometimes people call it bird's eye, God's eye, right? But the point is that I think parts and wholes are mental attributions, right? I think that so A is a part of B insofar as insofar as something is conceived as a whole, right?
I'll grant you that.
You know, and I mean, it's very reasonable and useful to do that, right? But the point is that what establishes the part-whole relationship, right? At least in the physical world, right? Because there's a sense in which, like, shape is a part of the concept of triangle, but that's an equivocation, right? I'm talking about the physical world, right? When we say A is part of B, right? We have to recognize B as a whole, right? And then what establishes what determines a whole, I think, is based on how you experience it and interact with it, right? It's not something that I think you discover in like you would discover a natural kind, right?
Well, there's something to discover about it, but I mean, if you got a box of rocks, and I'm referring to Nephilim here, you have a box, and you got a rock out here. I mean, there is something physically real about this rock not being in the box of rocks, basically. I mean, there's a box here, and then, of course, we have a human out here making this determination, of course, but fuck him. Just talk about the box of rocks. There is something very real about this box of rocks in the world. And if you had some other kind of like bizarre alien kind of creature here, right, that was something entirely different, like he had legs over there, he may come up with a different relationship with that box of rocks, you know, and talk about it differently, but nothing is going to change the fact of the box of rocks, and that's red rock's not in the box.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
This is set theory.
Yeah, I'm just saying that when we talk about parts and whole, though, right? So there might be a fact of the matter about the location of a thing, right?
And that's what it means. That's what we're talking about.
I thought we were talking about parts and wholes, right? And categories.
Well, parts. Okay. Yeah. Okay. To say these things are rocks. Now, the alien may see these as individual items because he happens to eat slate, but he fucking kills. They kill each other with granite, and they do something else with limestone. Okay. So he may not categorize those things the same way. But, you know, if you want to add a human out here and start categorizing things, yeah, we can do that too. But it doesn't change this fact of the world, that there is this thing that these different kinds of animals are going to interact with and come up with. Like, for instance, this alien might be a philosopher, and poke.
I think you're a philosopher too, Speed. I think everyone's a philosopher, so it's not really.
I won't admit it.
That label.
The one thing I hate is when I meet somebody who's like a scientist and they talk about how stupid philosophy is and how it doesn't matter. And I'm just like, oh, buddy, I could just ruin your world right now.
I think philosophy matters. I just personally find talking about it immensely boring.
That's fair. That's fair. I think science. Certain kind. I like biology. I get quantum physics is like that's a lullaby to me. So
yeah. No, I get that. Like everybody has different interests and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think picking these things apart, but I always try to that's why I consider myself a strong, hard realist, is because I take the God's eye view and I look at everything as just physical shit in space and time, and I start there and I go everywhere else. Yeah, space time, and then everywhere else. So changing, we could change the subject. Otangelo yesterday.
What about him?
I actually, before we do, I actually have to go help my mom with something. She needs to learn how to use Instacart because obviously she's shopping right now.
Actually,
That's an
Karis
interesting
in the
wave
chat
function.
brought up a good point, right? And I actually knew this proof, but I failed to give it. But going back to the water is H2O, right? If H2O, I think, what's the proof? It's something like this, right? Steam is H2O, ice is H2O, and liquid water is H2O, but ice is not steam. Steam is not liquid water, right? So that means that there can't be an identity relation between water, ice, and steam as being H2O.
I would say
because I think that in the words ice and steam, there's other factors playing into it that make it not synonymous with, say, each other.
But you understand what I'm saying, right? Like the point is that steam and ice are both H2O, but steam is not ice, right? So this is just is steam ice?
No.
Okay.
I mean, in some senses, yes, but in most senses, no.
Well, okay. Well, now you're just confusing me, Leo.
Well, because in some senses, it's just water in different forms. So it's water. In one form, it's water, but it's
But you're saying what you mean by water
together, and in another form, it's water.
You told me earlier.
Not packed together.
You told me earlier. All you mean by water is H2O.
Yeah.
Right. So when you say
that's not what I said. I said water is H2O. It's just like saying A equals A. Yes.
Okay. So then I can just anytime you say water, I can replace that with H2O, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then steam and water. Steam and ice are both water, which means that they're both H2O, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, but steam is not ice.
In some senses, yes, but in most senses, no.
I think that's a non-answer because I'm not going to dispute that, right? It's gonna.
Anyway,
but anyways, the point is that if you truly distinguish, Leo may not, right, between ice and steam, right? Because I do distinguish them. Most people distinguish them. That means they can't be identical to H2O. There has to be some kind of predication, right?
And steam isn't identical to H2O?
No, I don't think it is, right?
I definitely think it is.
Steam is constituted by H2O.
So steam is H2O.
No. If you're constituted by atoms, doesn't mean you are atoms.
Technically, I am atoms.
Well, that means in order to know who you are, you need to know your atomic composition.
Not necessarily. There are other emergent properties.
Is it an analytic or synthetic identity?
I have no idea. I don't think it's really relevant.
We could continue this. It seems like I've kind of hit a wall with you, but or you hit a wall with me. But I maybe if you want to continue the conversation or change it, that's fine.
Okay. So Tangelo with his FF fairies yesterday.
Where was this at?
We were talking about fine tuning in the universe, basically. We're on this channel on our 2:00 hangout. I think you were here. Weren't you here?
No, I wasn't in here. Yes, I wasn't in here at all yesterday, to my knowledge.
Wow. Okay. Anyway,
you need to start texting me when he comes in and runs these arguments because I can shut him down in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, yesterday we were talking about the fine tuning of the universe, and I kept asking him, "What the fuck do you mean by tuning?" Because as soon as you say tuning, you're starting to drag shit into the question. But what I suggested, one possibility for the universe is that we don't know what the bounds are here of the universe, the bounds basically out here. But we could be in a locality, and we could be in a locality in there could be a fifth dimension out here that basically explains all of dark matter and everything else. But okay, as soon as I said that we could be in a locality where things are tuned the way they are, where the constants are what they are, right? And out here, it could start to get fuzzy and things could break apart. And I was trying to point out to him, that if you're here arguing with me about it, you fucking have to be right here because you're not going to be able to exist out here where things are breaking apart. So he suggested that, oh, that was fucking some fucking F fairies or whatever. So he suggested that that was the same as fairies. And he is somebody who believes in a fairy god, which is hilarious to me. But I was explaining to him is something that is compatible with a kind of physics that we haven't quite wrapped our heads around yet, right? Physics and mathematics, and he complained that to a human fairy story, basically, which I thought was ridiculous and showed how small his mind actually is. I mean, and then we got into this kind of, okay, why do Christians, when you say that God magicked the universe into existence, they say, no, it's not magic.
Because they realize because no, it is magic, and they realize that technically it's magic, but they also understand that demonstrates the absurdity of what they believe.
And magic,
they don't want to admit that absurdity.
It has bad connotations. Yeah. And so what the fuck? I mean, what is more magic than creating a universe by speaking a word? I mean, that, like, you do an incantation and somebody gets sick. That's magic, right?
I really don't. This is where we might disagree. I mean, I think that the same way that when I raise my right hand, I think that's just an interaction between my intention and the physical. That's probably what they think about when they say that God spoke the universe into existence.
Spoke to you, yeah. Okay, so he raises his right hand and he creates the universe. Why isn't that magic?
Well, magic typically means something that you can't model, right? Something that is not that. Well, I think that there's just it's a very confused term, right? I don't really know how to define magic, actually.
I would define magic the way that I've seen it in every dictionary that I've ever read, and that is that it's the utilization of supernatural abilities, powers, forces, entities, agents, whatever you want to call it, to have some measurable effect in the natural world.
But then that just begs the question, and nothing wrong with that definition, simply it just begs the question that what is the supernatural? Right?
Anything that exists external to and independently of the natural world.
So if I were to, let's just pretend for a second, Leo, if I convinced you, which I don't know if I can, right, that your mind is not a natural thing, right? You would think you're supernatural?
Well, the mind isn't a natural thing.
I know.
Let's just pretend that question is asking me about if something is supernatural or what would it take to convince me is incoherent, because it's like asking me, what would you do if I took you north of the North Pole? The question makes no sense to me. Supernatural is just as incoherent as being north of the North Pole.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, wait, okay. Look, I don't think
I can't provide an answer. I don't know how. I don't know how.
I understand, but let me distinguish two kinds of incoherencies. There's magic, and then there's square triangles, right, in Euclidean plane, right? Do you think that these are the similar notions?
In some senses, yes.
Okay, well then that means you don't.
To me, something that's incoherent is incoherent, regardless of how it's incoherent. It's just,
no. There's a strict.
Maybe in philosophy, but in colloquial usage, which is what I'm using, there's not.
Well, then what do you mean by incoherent?
Not coherent. Makes no sense.
Okay, well, but just
has no legitimacy. It does not follow what we know through logic. I didn't know that I would need to define what incoherent meant. I figured we would all know.
No, but there's a problem with that different definition. If it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't mean that it's not. It's
not about not making sense to me. It's about literally, objectively does not make sense. It doesn't follow logic like a square circle. That's incoherent.
Yeah.
Do you have a definition for
absolutely? Yes. We talked about this already, right? I think, yeah. Remember, we talked about laws, right? Something that's not governed by laws, I take to be non-natural. Well, I don't use the term supernatural, but I think that if I were to use it, it would just mean non-natural.
Okay, but if you were out here on the edge of the universe, where all of the normal physical laws that hold for this area break down, would you call that supernatural if you were out here and space and time basically like particles no longer had distances between them?
Well, let me understand your question. Are you saying that the laws are different, or there's just no laws?
They're different. They vary as
long as they're laws. As long as they're laws, it's natural.
Okay, but out here they are different.
That's okay. It's just a different kind of natural. Look, that Harry Potter's. I think all that magic in Harry Potter is all natural. That's my view.
Okay, but then when you go out here, the laws vary at every particle. There's no consistency between the laws. Basically,
under my definition. Look, it's something that's natural if and only if there are laws.
It's not natural. It's not natural. There are no laws out here. Shit just goes all over.
If there are no laws, then it's just not. It's non-natural.
Then that would be supernatural out here. So,
sure.
So this part of the universe would be the supernatural.
Well, it's no longer really. If the universe is understood as the physical or natural thing, it's just not the universe.
What do you mean? No.
What do you mean universe?
Well, everything that is. There is something out here, but there are no laws that apply anymore.
So you don't distinguish world and universe?
World and universe.
I think it depends on the context.
The earth.
Because
when people say the world is ending, they don't mean the universe is ending. They just mean like our daily livelihoods here on Earth are ending. This is an infinity, and there is nothing else. There's nothing else anywhere. This is all of everything, all of what could be, what can be, and out here, this is basically a different world, a different modality, where there are no laws at all.
Right, it's just non-natural then, under my view.
So it would be supernatural.
Sure.
Okay, but is it supernatural in the same sense as these naked nubile humans who are dancing around a fire, throwing herbs on it, and creating curses on the nearby town?
Are there laws with respect to the curses?
Well,
typically no, because magic is generally a violation of laws of physics.
Well, look, let me give you a Harry Potter example, and then we'll go back to your fire people. When Harry Potter says Alohomora, right, or some spell, right, to me that dictates a kind of regularity or set of laws with respect to want, right? So that's natural to me. Right.
That actually wouldn't be true. J.K. Rowling herself has even said that the magic in her series is taken to be supernatural. It doesn't follow physical laws and is a direct violation of everything we know about physical laws.
She's just using the terms differently. Right?
Okay, I want to make it very clear then that what I'm talking about out here, this world without laws at all, is what you're calling supernatural, but it is not the same as my nubile humans dancing around the fire, because there's a fucking law. If they don't dance around the fire and throw the herbs on the fire, then there are no curses.
Yeah, I think that this is a natural phenomenon. If it's the case that we could substantiate a curse and this process, if we could substantiate it, it'd be natural.
Right. So if there were a God and he could speak a word, say a word and create a universe, then that would be natural to you.
Well, the point is that is there a law governing that intention and that effect, right? And if there is, then it's natural. If it's not, then it's non-natural.
The Bibble or the Babel.
But I think that if the second that you say that an intention and some effect is governed by the law, I think you eliminate the notion of intention. But that's a different conversation, probably.
Yeah. Intention just pisses me off, but that's okay.
It's one of the most curious concepts, actually. It's as curious as a moral statement, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see the difference. Okay, created by fairies is very different than what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is your supernatural. What he's talking about is this natural, or this natural magic, you would call it, or some magical indication.
Leo, you're talking about Leo?
No, I'm talking about D'Angelo.
Oh, I don't know what he means, right? But I don't know what Leo means either, because he thinks I think he might think it's meaningless, right? Leo, like magic is just meaningless.
No, it's incoherent.
Right, but how could an incoherent thing be meaningful?
You should probably go to an insane asylum and ask.
Well, the point so you agree with me that if it's incoherent, it's meaningless.
I don't know if that necessarily that distinction or that correlation can be drawn.
Well, you and I agree that if it doesn't make sense, right, it's not making sense to someone. Right?
Well, it's not that I'm saying it doesn't make sense. It's incoherent.
But you just defined incoherent as not making sense.
No.
What do you mean by
That's not how I would define incoherent.
I'll tell you what I mean by it, right? it means that
I would argue that incoherent means essentially that there's nothing there. It's like north of the North Pole.
If there's nothing there, then it's meaningless.
Not necessarily. Unicorns are incoherent. They don't exist. They're false. They're not real, but they can be meaningful.
Wait, do you
it
think
can have meaning is entirely subjective. Just because something's incoherent doesn't mean that somebody can't find meaning in it.
I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is that when I tell you if it were true that there's a unicorn in some part of the earth on Earth, right? That would be, you would understand what that means, right? Because you would just say that's a horse with a horn, right? It's not even physically impossible that you can.
But how do we know that's what a unicorn is?
Well, that's what you.
We don't know what a unicorn is because it's incoherent.
You don't know what a unicorn is?
No, nobody does. It's incoherent.
You think that unicorn and googly glock are just as incoherent with one another? Like
100%. Yep. You could call a unicorn a googly glock if you wanted to, because it's incoherent.
So then let me just change. You're having a problem with the sound, so let me just say: is a horse with a horn incoherent to you?
What do you mean by horn?
What do I mean by horn? Like what?
Like a horse that has like some sort of like singular antler, something like that coming out of its head? No, that's not incoherent.
That's what a lot of people think about when they say unicorn. Can we establish that?
Yeah.
Okay, so now the term unicorn is coherent based on that stipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is okay. So we changed our mind, but the point is that when we say when I say incoherent, it's meaningless or there's a contradiction. Okay, it doesn't cohere with anything, right? Googly glock. What is that? How could that be contradict anything if it just doesn't have? If I don't understand the meaning of it, right? So in the same way that a triangle with no sides, right? That's incoherent in the sense that there's a contradiction. Okay, but now I'm asking you if magic, right, is something like unicorn. Or is it something like googly glock or triangle with no sides?
What?
So, look, there are two kinds of incoherencies. The sense that I'm using refers to things like googly glock and triangle with no sides, right? These, to me, are incoherent. If you said there's a googly glock glare, I don't know what that means, right? It's incoherent to me. It doesn't cohere with any of my beliefs as to establish the truth or falsity of it, right? In the same way that if you said there's a triangle with no sides drawn on the board, I wouldn't know what you meant, right? That because those are contradictory notions, right? So, but when someone says there's a non-natural thing, that's not incoherent to me. I think I have a usage of that word. That's a meaningful word to me. And I'm just asking whether you think something that's non-natural is meaningful to you, or is it something like googly glock?
It's incoherent. Non-natural. There can't be a thing that is non-natural because to be a thing means it's natural.
I don't feel like you answered the question. But I mean,
boys and girls, I think we should end for the day.
Okay.
I don't know, but
talk.
Yeah.
If you are interested, I don't know if if I exasperated you or however you pronounce it. If I have you frustrated. Me? No, I'm talking to Leo because Leo.
Yeah.
But if you're tired, what? I'm saying that I'm fine with continuing to talk, but if you're tired or if I frustrated you, then we can talk about it.
No, yeah, frustrated me. I just don't have time. I've got to shower and shave and then get ready for a debate.
Yeah.
Good luck. Where is it?
Modern day debate.
Oh yeah, but okay. Who are you? You're debating the geocentrism stuff.
Yeah, with Robertson Jennings.
Okay, good luck. I think you'll do well. I
hope I do.
Yeah.
I just want to make one final point. The kind of magic that we have in our fucking fiction and stuff like that. The nubile humans dancing around the fire, throwing herbs on it, or Harry Potter or whatever, or fucking fairies, or God. Those are all unimaginative, supernatural, basically, or magic. And the magic that is really imaginative is the physical thing I talked about, where laws start to change or break down. And I think that is a very significant point. We are so unimaginative in what we think about when we think about the supernatural. To me, supernatural would be if I were to walk into my bathroom and all of a sudden my hands started to fucking dissolve or, end up.
Why wouldn't you think there's a naturalistic explanation?
Why would I think that was a naturalist?
Why wouldn't you think that's a naturalistic
Well,
explanation?
yeah, I mean, there could be a physical explanation, but it would be a sudden break in the rules of this world.
I don't think that would follow. I don't think that would.
But that would be very different than the kind of magic where I walk into the room and a unicorn pops out of the corner. Okay, that is a stupid, unimaginative kind of magic.
Well, I don't think that
imaginative kind of magic is where I walk into my bathroom and all of a sudden there are weird fucking polygon relationships that I can't even wrap my head around. That would be real magic.
Yeah. Okay. If I can close, I'm not going to really disagree with you so much as elaborate on my view, but I'm prepared to grant the resurrection to Christians, but just say that why isn't it not a naturalistic explanation? So I don't think any observation can disconfirm a naturalistic any observation couldn't definitively confirm a non-natural event, right? So
yeah, well, I've heard that COVID is mutating in Colorado, and there are some unsubstantiated rumors of zombies.
Oh, nice.
No. But that's next anyway. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But you understand my distinction with imaginative and unimaginative magic.
I don't, but we have to leave it later.
Okay, good enough. Enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of want to end this at around 2 hours. That way, for one thing, I get a transcript, and for another thing, if I'm going to do this every day, I can't spend 4 fucking hours on it.
I'm about to go back to work next week, so you'll see a lot less of me. Yeah, because I teach, so the school starts the first semester, the second semester starts. And so, Are
you in person teaching, online, a mixture of both?
Both.
Okay.
Both, right? And then I'm in grad school as well, and that starts the week after. So
What are you in grad school for?
I'm getting my master's in philosophy.
Right? Oh, nice.
So, yeah. But you will see a lot less of me. So this is why I'm gonna try to come tomorrow, and then starting Monday, I'm only really gonna see you on the weekends. And if I'm not seeing you in the weekends, it's because I'm doing what I shouldn't be doing, right?
Okay.
So, but anyways, it was nice talking to y'all. Thanks for the conversation.
Okay. Good enough. I'm going to end the broadcast. Both atheists define supernatural.
Good luck, Leo. Really, good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting discussion.
Okay, we're ending. Bye all out there.
Bye, everybody.